Hello and welcome to the Autism, ADHD and Us 3 podcast with me, Jenny Lucas. We'll be talking all things neurodiversity, including late diagnosis, parenting and everything else that comes in between. This podcast is not intended to be diagnostic. I am not a doctor. These are our personal experiences peppered with research and occasionally the experiences of others. The podcast is intended as a supportive guide through the experience of parenting neurodiverse children as a late diagnosed person, hopefully bringing some relatable stories and laughs along the way. Any relevant links will be in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode.
Hi everybody, welcome to this episode of Autism, ADHD and Us 3. And I am delighted to have with me today Sarah West as our specialist guest. I've been really looking forward to this chat today because Sarah is a specialist perimenopause, menopause and ADHD coach. And I have not yet met a single late diagnosed autistic or ADHD woman who is not also needing some information about perimenopause, menopause and how that is impacted by being a neurospicy brain. So I am absolutely delighted to have you here with us today. Sarah, thank you so much. I believe you've got over 20 years experience as an NHS nurse. You've done specialist training in ADHD and you've got experience and expertise in both perimenopause and menopause. So thank you for being with us on the podcast today. And if I can just kick off by asking, and you'll probably cover this in a minute, but why do so many women discover that they are neurodivergent at the sort of time of life where perimenopause is kicking in?
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for having me. I think there's a few different reasons. Partly, I think it's a time of life when we've got children. You know, a lot of us, our children are neurodivergent, and we're looking at, discovering that their, a lot of their struggles are actually down to autism, ADHD, often both, and other neurodivergent conditions. So I know that there's a huge amount of women who are seeing their kids being assessed and diagnosed as neurodivergent. And then, of course, they're going through that process. They recognise a lot of the signs and symptoms in themselves. Also, going into perimenopause, it may, for me personally, and I'm sure it's the same for thousands of other women, the sort of scaffolding that you've had in place all your life, that you've kind of just been getting through the days, suddenly just don't work anymore. And for me, I mean, I was aware that I had ADHD at the time that I think I was in perimenopause many years beforehand. And it had been rumbling, but certainly, for me, it got incredibly worse. All the symptoms of it got much worse when I went into perimenopause. Of course, there's more knowledge now, people are talking about it more, and with social media, there's more awareness. So it's probably a bit of all of these.
Yeah,
really. And of course, women are talking to each other as well and being more open about a lot of this.
I have to say that that communication, and I think for all that there's a lot of bashing goes on about social media, for me, I find it a really validating experience to just hear about other people's experiences. And I mean, I'm 40 now, and menopause wasn't really discussed when I was a teenager or anything like that. And I didn't even really know that the term perimenopause existed. Like, there was this thing until quite, in my 30s. I didn't even know that perimenopause was a thing or how it could impact people. So I'd be really interested to know how you came about being an ADHD specialist and then working with perimenopause and menopause. What happened that brought that into your life?
So with the ADHD coaching, because as you said, I was working as a nurse, I've been a nurse for 20 years. And when I hit perimenopause, I just had my ADHD diagnosis. I had an awful lot to process, lots of information there and lots of other stuff going on as it happens. Our time of life where you're starting to support more elderly relatives, your, again, children who are neurodivergent, you're supporting them and, also working and trying to run a home. And it all just kind of fell apart for me. And I got signed off work for 3 months by my GP. And it was just within that period of time that I also got an ADHD coach. And, she literally helped me transform my life. And, prior to this, when I'd heard, like when people said they were a coach, I just thought it made me feel a bit cringe and a bit like, really? And you know, you don't really know when people say they're a coach, it sounds a bit airy fairy, and you think, and it wasn't my thing at all. And if I'm honest, I can't even remember how I got a coach. It just happened in that time frame where, you know, I was just at a really, really low point in my life. And she was amazing. And I couldn't believe it. And it was just the first time in my life that somebody understood my ADHD. They understood the things I was talking about. They didn't invalidate. They understood, you know, I would describe things like about emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitivity, which affects a huge amount of people who are neurodivergent. And she just understood, and she got it, and she supported me and championed me and really helped me find ways to really look at myself in a really positive way and look at how I, you know, what I wanted my life to look like. I mean, of course, you know, you know, you can say win the lottery, you know, but realistic goals of what I was unhappy with or what things I would want to change in my life. And she helped me to look into how I could do it. You know, of course you've got to be realistic. You can't say, oh, you know, I want to, you know, whatever, you know, live in a castle or whatever, you know, but it was incredible. I could not believe just how transformative it was and how much it helped me. And then with my nursing, that was getting more and more hard to do with, again, both of my children had struggles like attending school. They had a lot of anxiety around their autism, and I just needed to be around more because there was a lot of picking up from school early or you know, this, that, and the, you know, it's just that time. I just didn't have time, and you know, my confidence was really, really low as well. And I just thought I need to do, you know, I knew I needed to give up my nursing career, but I didn't know what to do after that.
Yeah.
And suddenly this just kind of landed in my lap. And I thought, wow, I've got so many transferable skills that I can bring to this, and I can support. I love it's that really weird imbalance, isn't there? That I love working with people and I love supporting people, but I also like being on my own. And the other way, I'm like, oh, I don't like people.
Yeah.
But I do. But as a nurse, I really, really loved being a nurse and helping people. And I thought, you know what, this is what I really love, and to work with other women who had gone through what I'd been through, to understand, you know, there's that lived experience of knowing that, you know, there's so much shame and misunderstanding and guilt around being neurodivergent. There is layers of grief really from realizing this life that you've lived, which you weren't yourself. You were pretending to or trying to be somebody else for what you thought society would accept you as, and you know, just layers and layers and layers. And then looking at, you know, generational links and supporting your kids and fighting for them, and you know, and it's just, I just thought, you know what, I want to help other women who are going through all this, because this was really so utterly grim when it was happening to me. And I thought, in a very ADHD way, you know, we're very kind of with our social justice as well. I was like, right, I've got the skills here, and I can get these skills, and I can train to be an ADHD coach. And this is what my passion is. I really love doing it. You know, it's like the best hyper focus that hasn't gone away now.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's interesting what you say there about the part of nursing that you enjoyed was being a nurse. Obviously, it seems obvious to say that out loud, and I can identify with that as a former secondary school teacher. The part of teaching that I loved was teaching and being with the children. And as a music teacher, it was that creativity and getting to do performances with them and seeing them come out of themselves. And the music department was always somewhere where everybody or certain kids would come and like feel safe. Can we come and eat lunch with you, miss? Can we have a practice room? Can we whatever? And that was a bit of teaching that I loved. It wasn't all the other stuff round about it that puts you off the job. And that idea of working with people, there's so many things that you said there that I really resonated with. That idea of, I love working with people, but I also quite like being on my own. Very much enjoy that in terms of my own work that I do with people and the coaching that I do too. That one-to-one, being with people and helping them have those light bulb moments, and knowing that they don't feel so alone, and knowing that they feel validated, and knowing that you're supporting them to make active changes in their lives, as you've experienced with your own coach, as I've experienced with coaches. It's just unbelievable. And again, like you were saying there about coaching, like, you know, at the very beginning of this journey, when I was also coming out of my teaching career and wondering, what the hell do I do now that I'm not a teacher? What's my career now? like looking at life coaches that's like almost quote unquote life coach. And I know exactly what you mean when you have that kind of, oh, what is that? But if you were to say you were going to a counsellor or a therapist, like that feels more solid somehow. But in a lot of ways, the work that coaches do, although it's not therapy, it's a different sort of almost practical support in terms of mindset work and how you view the world and how you can change that. And the light bulb moments that you had with your own coach, I had also had some ADHD coaching through Access to Work last year or the year before now, I can't remember. And those sessions, although they were based around work, obviously strayed out into other aspects of my life. And it was just so amazing. And my coach was quite straightforward and a bit brutal at times. But she'd be like, well, why do you say it like that? What about the other people around about you? You know, what do you think they're thinking? What do you think their experience of that is? And it was almost kind of like, oh, I hadn't thought of that before. Do you know, those kind of like, well, you've really made me think, actually, why do I do things that way? Or why am I so, you know, set on that particular thing? It's just, like you say, it's transformative. And it's lovely to have that space. It's just for you. I did a video earlier on, actually, that I put out on social media where it was around the fact that coaching is like the best form of self-care that you can offer for yourself, because it is a financial commitment. It is a time commitment. There is work involved in what you're doing with a coach, and you have to commit to do that. This person that you're going to speak to is not going to, you know, do everything for you. You have to, it's a partnership. You have to commit to it. But if you can see the value in yourself, that it is worthwhile you spending time with this other person to support you with these struggles, it is so life-changing, even just because it's building up your own self-worth. I am worthy enough to access this kind of support for myself.
Yeah.
That in itself is life-changing. So tell me a little bit more about how you work with people that come to you at this stage of life, perimenopause, kids. Things are a bit chaotic. How am I going to sort myself out, Sarah? What kind of work would we do together?
Well, it's really, it's what you bring to the session. It's what you want, your goals for that time. You've got that time together. You know, it's that sort of 45 minutes, an hour a week where, you know, as long as you're, you know, very aware of things like safeguarding. So unless there's something I'm worried about for you or somebody around you, this space is completely confidential. You bring to it whatever's bothering you. So whether it's I'm struggling to pay my bills, or I can't, you know, whatever it is, you know, I want to get off my phone more, or I can't sleep properly, and what's my sleep pattern like? And you're always like curious. You're always saying, why do you do it? What is it that's, you know, what is it that's stopping you from doing this? You're always curious about, you know, the why people are doing these things a certain way, and what they would want to change. Like you said, you're just doing it in a kind and compassionate way, so that you're looking at yourself and thinking, I'm okay, looking at ways that you can reinforce these positive beliefs about yourself. We've all got this natural negative bias about ourselves. We've told ourselves all our lives, I can't do this, I'm stupid, I'm lazy, I can't do it properly, I'm not good enough, people don't like me. All these things. And then you have to be able to start turning that around and think, actually, there are a lot of good things here. And it's remembering them, strengthening those neural pathways. Yeah. And there are studies which show that people who have positive memories about themselves are happier. Yeah. So, you know, there is work, and it's all through an ADHD lens. So it's looking at remembering these aspects that we call them rainbow lists. The coaching academy I trained with, called ADCA, they're known to be one of the best coaching academies in the world. And we have these rainbow lists, and you can keep adding them. So if I work with clients, I'll be saying, oh, you know, they'll say something that they did that made them really happy, they did for themselves. And you know, that really, really helped their self-confidence. And you're like, yep, put that on your rainbow list.
And that, do you know, and it's interesting what you say there in terms of linking back to what you said about RSD. So that rejection sensitivity dysphoria is so common in people with ADHD. And I see it in my own household, actually, with my children and my husband. He's acknowledged himself that he actually, once he discovered what that was, he was like, that really describes some of the struggles that I have. We are predisposed as humans with this sort of negative not mindset, but, our brains are sort of almost hardwired to look for the thing that might cause us danger,
Yeah.
And it's active work to overcome that and to sort of reprogram what's going on in the brain. Like you say, you're growing lovely new little neural pathways. But like anything in life, it takes reinforcement and practice. I say with my music teacher hat on, if you want to develop a skill, you have to continue to practice it. And being in a session with you helps you, one, understand that, and two, find strategies where you are reinforcing that and practicing it all the time. And it could be something like positive affirmations. And again, that was something that when I first came across it, I found totally cringe. The idea of why would I stand and say nice things about myself?
Mm.
Like as a wee woman from the west of Scotland, like that is not in our DNA. And I think as sort of people in a British society, we're not programmed to think well of ourselves, are we? Do you know what I mean? If you've come across people in life that are doing well for themselves and that are confident in talking about it, it was almost kind of like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of sort of reprogramming or unprogramming to do, I think. And when you've got ADHD and or autism, we have received so many more negative information, so much more negative information about ourselves because of our struggles and the other labels that people have given us for those. You've said already, lazy, disorganised, dramatic, all of those things that we've been told and that we then reinforce about ourselves. I am lazy and I am dramatic. It's not for the faint-hearted, really, taking on the task of reprogramming some of this and changing how we think about ourselves. But when you do it, and I can only say this from my own lived experience, your whole perspective of the world genuinely does change. Not overnight, because nothing happens overnight, but, like you say, ambition might be to live in a castle, great, but sort of, there's a lot of work to do in terms of getting towards that point, but it's starting really small, actually. What I'd like to do is wake up in the morning and like who I am.
Yeah.
Like that is, there's plenty of work that we can go and do towards that, which is then transformative in other ways.
Yeah, very much so. And of course we're people pleasers as well, linked with the
massively,
RSD.
yes. Yeah.
So, I do a lot of work with clients around like boundaries and what's important for them. And for, not being kind of taken advantage of by other people or, learning to be able to recognize what serves you rather than letting things happen or saying yes to doing things and then thinking, I wish I hadn't said yes to that, or why am I doing it? Because again, it's kind of, it's putting yourself first, but not in a horrible, selfish way, in a healthy way.
Yes.
I've done that so many times in my life where I've done stuff thinking, I don't even want to be here. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
So, but then you don't want to upset people and you don't want people not to like you. So you just go along with it. And then, and the only person you're really hurting is yourself. So it's finding ways to protect your own energy.
Yes. That, and again, what comes to mind again is your nursing career, my teaching career. Quite a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are in the public service in some way or another. We're the kind of humans that help, that like to help, that will put ourselves out there to help other humans. And there's the danger of that being toxic in terms of that sort of that people pleasing. And again, it's a piece of work to learn that you are important and that you have needs and that those needs matter, and it's okay to have those needs met and to meet those needs yourself. And I think once that you can start to acknowledge that and appreciate it and see the benefits that has for yourself, but then for the people round about you as well, I think that's the tipping point where you realise this isn't actually selfish what I'm doing here for myself, because look at how I'm now able to have more capacity with the children. Look at how I'm now able to listen to their day at school without wishing the ground would swallow me up because I don't have time for this. Yeah. Do you know, it's all those little moments, isn't it?
Yeah. Very much so. And also you're role modelling for your children as well. And they are seeing that this is healthy and you can do it in a healthy, good way where you can react to situations and go, actually, I won't do that now because that's not a priority, but I'll do this, but thank you for asking, or whatever it is. But your kids are seeing you doing this, and also, then they'll probably speak to you about situations that they've got, and you could then, work with them. So it's, I think it only helps because we're learning so much from our parents about how you parent, or how you are a human, that it's important to get those ripples out to your kids.
Definitely. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you a little bit about symptoms, coming back to sort of perimenopause and menopause. Would you be able to, just in case there's anybody out there that's going, oh, perimenopause, what is that? Like, how could that impact me? What's the difference between perimenopause and menopause? Would you be able to stick your nurse hat on for a minute and give us a little bit of information about what that actually is and how it could be impacting somebody in their life?
Yeah, well, I can tell you more from my lived experience, because as a nurse,
Yeah.
I was actually a respiratory nurse.
Okay.
So I was all lungs.
Brilliant.
I was a respiratory specialist. But certainly, I mean, I am a member of the British Menopausal Society, and of course I'm supporting, but I'm not a menopausal trained nurse, as it were. But certainly with perimenopause, it's much more kind of on like what symptoms you're getting. I know some doctors will say you have to have a blood test. That's not correct. You're looking at symptoms and how it's impacting your life on so many levels of how you're feeling, or how you're reacting, how your kind of energy levels, or that sort of thing. So the perimenopause is the leading up to the, because when you're in the menopause, I can't remember now. It's when you haven't had a period for
over a year.
Over a year. I was going to say, I couldn't remember if it was 1 year or 3 years. So yeah, but certainly perimenopause is leading up, and some people are going into perimenopause. I think it's a smaller percentage, but that's before 40. But generally, it's kind of is up to, and certainly I know that, again, from lived experience, I was told by a GP in my early 40s that I was too young to be in the perimenopause.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah, which was incorrect, of course. It's So yeah, you're looking at symptoms really, and and it's just when it hits with the ADHD as well, because so many of the symptoms overlap.
Yeah.
So it's very easy. So I think some women are saying, oh, I hit perimenopause and then I got ADHD. Well, you don't get it,
Yes.
With ADHD, it is genetic. So a lot, when people have said to you, they think they got it when they went into perimenopause, I would always advise that you look at symptoms from when you were young. Always look at when you were a child, what you were like, what your school reports were like, anecdotally from family members or friends who knew you as a child, what you were like, things you remember about impulsivity, emotional dysregulation, how your thought patterns worked. And again, it's, and of course, women and girls present so differently to
Absolutely.
boys.
I think when you said earlier on about scaffolding, and that really rang a bell for me, and I've had this conversation with my husband a lot over the last few years because we've been together quite a long time. I was young. Well, I was in my 20s when we met, so none of this perimenopause stuff. But it is, your life sort of builds up. And certainly for me, we were married and we both had careers, and then you start to build things into your life, don't you? So we had a child, we got a mortgage. I was then working and having a child, and sort of like so many women taking on the majority of the mental load at home. And then we had another child, and then I changed jobs, and then I went back full time. And it's like this constant stacking of responsibilities and spinning of plates. And then on top of that, you've got declining hormone levels. So you've got a bit of brain fog coming in, and you've got less energy, and you're becoming more overwhelmed with the kids. And it's almost like a leaning tower of Jenga in a way, isn't it? And things start to sort of fall off. And you go, why can't I cope with life anymore? And it's that idea that actually, if you think back to 15 years ago, how many of these responsibilities did you have at that time? Not even half of them. And also, we've got these declining or fluctuating hormone levels, which impact all of the functions in the body. Like the estrogen receptors, I've learned that we have estrogen receptors in pretty much every part of the body. Yes. So when your estrogen starts to fluctuate, all kinds of weird and wonderful things are impacted by that. And suddenly it becomes this, I'm not good enough. I can't cope. Why can't I do these things anymore? And so, the forgetfulness and the rejection sensitivity and all those different kind of things really start to come to the fore. And for me, I was probably mid to late phase when that all started to come around. And again, so commonly heard, oh, it can't be perimenopause. You're far too young. You're far too young. No, because perimenopause can be 10 to 15 years prior to your period stop, and then you're in that sort of year-long wait of menopause, and then you're postmenopausal.
Yeah.
So, the education out there about what menopause is still so lacking. I had no idea that there was such a long run-up to right now you can't have children anymore because you've gone past the point. There's so much more to it, isn't there?
And of course, your estrogen is, estrogen is what helps you produce the dopamine. And when you've got ADHD, you've got less dopamine anyway. So when your estrogen starts going down, your dopamine goes down even further, which is why so many women, things really start to fall apart in the perimenopause, because you're not producing those hormones that you've just been coping with life with for a long, long time. And then suddenly they go and your brain just says, no, thank you.
Yeah. It does. Certainly for me personally, it kind of got to that point where it was like all of these, because as you say, as a woman, we're kind of born and taught to adapt and overcome, well, you'll be fine. You can do it. You can cope with that. Here's another thing for you to do. And we do find ways to try and make things work as much as possible. And so, like you said, so many women are sort of having that experience of, oh, I got ADHD in perimenopause. And like you said earlier on, no, it's just all of the various strategies that you put in place to cope with life. You didn't have access to them anymore because your energy's not there anymore, or, the brain function that you had to juggle 50 things just isn't there anymore. And so, we've masked magnificently through our lives to the point where we physically literally can't do it anymore. And like you say, that is where so many plates start to come crashing down round about us. And I find quite a lot of people in a similar position to me who are sort of at that point where it's like, well, how do I get back to being that person that I was before? I want that life back, please. Yeah. And it just doesn't seem to be accessible. And then you have things like burnout, and autistic burnout in particular, again, is another chronically under-researched, misunderstood thing within our sort of health service. And you end up finding all these things out for yourself and trying to find supports that best work for you. But then, of course, there are people out there in the world like you who are able to support people with the coaching that you offer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
if we've got people listening that are going, I think I need a bit of Sarah in my life to help me sort things out, how can people find out how to work with you and the sort of things that you offer?
So there's my website, which is www.sarahwest-adhd.com. So you can get information there, or my email, which is hello@sarahwest-adhd.com. And so they can always book a discovery call, a free discovery call to chat to me about this more. Look on my website. You can book a call with me and chat further there. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn about ADHD and the perimenopause and menopause. And also just to quickly say as well, the really, really important thing for me when we were saying about fluctuating hormones affecting your dopamine is, for me personally, and what I would advocate, I know a lot of people don't like taking medication, or they prefer to have like more natural remedies for perimenopause, but I would always advocate getting your HRT sorted first. Before sorting out if you're on medication for your ADHD. I would always say HRT as a primary foundation, because then you're getting your hormones back into where they should be, because obviously your brain function has really declined with the lowering of your estrogen, your progesterone, testosterone. So get those back up where they should be first, and then tackle the ADHD. That's something which is very, very important, because that's obviously when the wheels really fell off for me.
Yeah.
Was when those went. But coaching is great. They say pills don't give you skills.
Very good.
So you can be on your ADHD medication. I take ADHD medication and it does help me, but it was the coaching that really helped me to look at my life and say, how do I navigate this, and what do I do, and how do I think about myself, and all this mirror that you've got against you to be able to move forward. They say coaching's looking forward, therapy's looking back, coaching is looking forward, and you've got to be motivated to want to make those changes. But my goodness, you can really make some big, strong changes which are positive for you and for other people. But it's looking at it from an ADHD point of view all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, I will put links to your website in the show notes so that anyone listening now can just have a look at the show notes and click away, get straight there to find out more about how to work with you. But it's an absolutely fascinating topic, and one I think that impacts so many more of us than we even realise. So it's really important to keep having conversations like these, because there's still more research to be done, more information to find out. But the more that you can learn about what could be happening for you, the easier it is then to understand, and the less likely you are to panic and to sort of spiral into anxiety about what's going on. And the fact that there are so many other women out there who are experiencing similar things at the same time is weirdly reassuring, because you're not just losing your marbles. You know that it's a natural part of life. I don't like to use that term because I've had doctors use that against me negatively. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, what do you expect? All women go through it. So what we're just supposed to be miserable about it then? It's really reassuring to know that there's other people out there experiencing it, and other people out there that can support us through this time as well.
I think it's one of the most Googled terms that that is ADHD, perimenopause.
Wow.
It's very, very, very popular thing that women are looking for, because so many of us are realising that we've been misdiagnosed. I was, been told all my life I had anxiety and depression. At one point I thought I was bipolar, because I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know why I was so tired all the time, why, but that's inattentive ADHD. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. Again, then you tell yourself you're lazy or stupid and other people aren't doing this.
And you go to the doctor and they say, oh, well, you have got 2 children and a job. You are very busy. People are tired. And it's like, but not this kind of tired.
Yes. I was told it was depression. I was told that depression's tiring. That's what it is. Well, not this time. Well, of course they are. Depression and anxiety are, coexisting conditions that go with ADHD, though, of course, and autism. But no, it's just something I'm really passionate about now, to spread the word and help other women, because this is not fun.
No, it's not. But having the right information absolutely helps make things a lot easier. And you don't feel, when you're with someone that understands, like you say, when you worked with your own coach and you felt validated, you're no longer like pedaling really hard to try and be understood and explain yourself. There's a sense of real relief to no longer be being gaslit about, are you sure it's not this? Are you sure you're just not X, Y, Z? To actually say to somebody.
Everybody's a bit like this.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Don't we all love that sentence? Everyone's a bit on the spectrum, or whatever it is people say. Is like, but in fact, that's something that I've worked with clients with a few times. They've asked me to work with them to find ways to be able to explain to their friends and family how this shows up for them, because they've been invalidated, because they have been gaslit. It's mad. People asking. I've worked with people in ways to tell other people how autistic burnout, ADHD burnout presents. Because again, everyone gets tired. No, this is very, very different.
It's just that validation, isn't it? It's so lovely to be in a space with someone who goes, I get it. Yes, that is, you are experiencing what you are experiencing. Like, I'm not going to try and pretend to you that that's not what you're feeling. And I think even just that brings its own real sense of relief. Like, oh my God, someone is believing me and understanding, and they're going to help me find ways to not feel so much like this anymore. It's undescribable, really, that sensation. So if anybody is feeling like they need to get in touch with you to have some sessions, they can find all your details in the bio. And I am just so grateful that you were able to come and talk on the podcast with us today. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Jenny. It's been really, really lovely to chat with you.
Thank you.